We have before us the opportunity to forge for ourselves and for future generations a new world order.
New world order.
New world order.
This is a moment to seize. The kaleidoscope has been shaken. The pieces are in flux. Soon they will settle again. Before they do, let us reorder this world around us.
A new world order.
A world where the United Nations is poised to fulfill the historic vision of its founders.
Nevertheless, the United States is in a key position to shape this so that the problem of the Bush presidency will be the emergence of a new international order.
The first decade of the 21st century, that out of what will be seen as the greatest restructuring of the global economy, a new world order was created.
Documenting the crisis of our republic.
The very word secrecy is repugnant in a free and open society. And we are, as a people, inherently and historically opposed to secret societies, to secret oaths, and to secret proceedings.
Waging war on the New World Order.
In the councils of government, we must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex.
This is Govern America with Darren Weeks and Vicky Davis.
Live from Primo Regions 5 and 10, this is Govern America. I'm Darren Weeks. Vicky Davis is here as well. It is the 14th of March, 2020, as we once again document the crisis of our republic, and it's certainly in a crisis today. Man, where do we start?
I don't know. There's so much.
Yeah, it is indeed very, very strange. It's amazing how fast things can change in a week. We're seeing store shelves go blank, bare. The groceries now are flying off the store shelves here in southern Michigan. It started with cleaning supplies and toilet paper, of all things. That's the thing that really, I don't know, if anything baffles me more than anything, it's the toilet paper shortage.
I know, you might not have anything to eat, so what are you worried about toilet paper for?
It's gotten so ridiculous. Exactly. It's gotten so ridiculous. There's a man that was busted. Let me see, I don't know where this is. I guess it's Florida. Some guy, the smoking gun has, as the coronavirus scare prompts panicked runs on toilet paper worldwide, a Florida man was arrested yesterday. This was dated March 11th, so it would have been March 10th that he was arrested for the 1 a.m. theft of some 2-ply bath tissue from his neighbor's vehicle. According to court records, police allege Sanfraz Shakur, who's a 25-year-old, burglarized a Dodge truck parked in the driveway of a residence a few blocks from his Clearwater home. He was recorded on a Ring video surveillance doorbell camera, entering the unlocked truck's back seat and swiping a roll of toilet paper from the 6-pack of Smart and Simple bath tissue. Now, this is something that normally sells at the Dollar General for $1. And he stole this out of his neighbor's truck. And now he's facing a felony and a $1,000 fine for stealing a 6-pack of toilet paper that would normally sell for $1 from a local Dollar General. This is so ridiculous.
Make an example of him.
This is the most insane, ridiculous, idiotic thing I've ever seen in my life. Mm-hmm. Every time I think I've seen a lot of insane, ridiculous, idiotic things, current events seem to top it.
Yeah. Well, the U.S. justice system is just nuts. It's gone nuts.
Well, but the guy has gone nuts. I mean, really, people didn't used to have toilet paper anyway. They used to wipe on leaves and whatever else. I mean, you don't have to have that stuff, folks. I mean, you can get by. I mean, it's a luxury item. It is a luxury item. I mean, obviously nobody wants to be without it, but it's a luxury item. Food, on the other hand, isn't. And it's funny watching things transpire because we've been telling people for years that this day was coming. That someday in America the store shelves would go empty. Someday in America this was going to happen. And of course, I understand normalcy bias. I understand, but folks, the time to prepare for an emergency is not when the emergency starts. At that point, it's too late. And here we are. So how long will it last? Well, I don't think it'll probably last very long in terms of the immediate shortages and things like that. I think the stores will replenish themselves, assuming there's not disruptions in the supply chain any more than there already has been. There's a lot of shock to the system on the demand side. We don't yet know, I don't think, Vicky, just what the shocks are on the supply side. We know there have been some, but have they trickled? I don't know. Have you heard any stories, major stories, about plants shutting down yet? Not just because of the virus, but because of the fact that they can't get. I mean, I've heard some stories of some places. I couldn't put my finger on the exact locations and exact plants, but there will be probably shortages of parts and things like that they need. I know one thing
because of supply chain. Yes.
Yeah, one thing that's very, very worrying to me, as I found out recently, just in the last couple of days, China supplies a huge amount of our pharmaceuticals.
Oh, yeah. The central planners of the global economy decided a long time ago that China was going to be the manufacturer for the world.
Yeah, the thing that's worrying to me is that you've got something like this going on in China. They supply 97%, I guess, 96 or 97% of our antibiotics. And they are using that leverage against us.
Yeah, when I heard that, I said, well, okay, then we should stop exporting food to China, even if they own the manufacturing plants, because they own Smithfield Hams and probably a lot of other of our food suppliers. And so we don't give them food.
Yeah, I don't know how much is it a significant portion that they get from us?
I think they do, of the raw materials. I even heard that they ship chickens over to China to be slaughtered and then ship them back, which is completely insane.
Well, I know
but the global central planners don't have to necessarily make sense in terms of economics, because what they're trying to do is to build a global system. So that's their number one priority. Actual efficiency is down lower on the list to the political objective of the global system.
Right. Exactly. We got a call on the line already. By the way, folks, you're welcome to call in. We got a lot to talk about today. 610-600-1776. That's 610-600-1776. Or toll-free 844-646-8376. That's toll-free 844-6-GOVERN. Let's go to Tennessee. I think this is John. John. Hello.
Muy bueno.
How you doing?
I'm doing, my friend. Listen.
Got some static on the line for some reason. We'll have to try to bear through it, I guess.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah, it's better.
Okay, well, I'm in the country. I hear the static too.
Yeah, I don't know what that's.
I hope I'm clear.
It's probably on my end.
Clear. The supply.
No, I hear it too.
Hey, Darren.
So, but just go ahead, because we can hear you through the static, and if we can't, we'll just tell you.
It's my wonderful phone company, I'm sure. Anyway, go ahead.
Well, okay, supply chain, you want to know about any disruptions. I know one in particular, and it's life-shattering, Darren. They have They're not able to build Mercedes-Benz in Alabama.
Oh, no.
They're waiting
Oh.
for switches coming from China. Now,
sorry, go ahead.
in all honesty, the people do want to work. They do want to work, so they need to be able to build cars.
Mm-hmm.
We're told where I'm in transportation, drive a truck, fuel, that if one person in our fleet is diagnosed with the non-existent, in my opinion, and I know we differ, this coronavirus, that they're going to shut the entire fleet down, which means no fuel from our 100 trucks are going to be going anywhere. We're going to be quarantined at home for a minimum of 2 to 6 weeks, depending on how bad the outbreak may be. With or without pay, they haven't determined yet. So how many people can sit home for 2 weeks, 6 weeks without income and still pay their bills?
Right.
Vicky, I'm sure you're aware of something called Event 201, correct?
No, actually, I'm not.
Okay.
What is it?
201. If I remember correctly, the date, it was like October of 2019. The Chinese CDC, the United States CDC, the CIA, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and others held a conference called Event 201.
Yeah, that was like a few months ago, wasn't it? I saw something about that. Yeah.
That was before the outbreak, and they were calling it COVID-19. And it wasn't how are we going to prevent it. It was how are we going to combat those pesky people that are not going to believe that it's true. And they're talking about infiltrating the churches because people believe they're pastors. And then corporate CEOs, because employees seem to have this strange idea that their CEO would tell them the truth, be a great motivator. And it's not how to prevent it. It was how to gain funds to be able to, what did they call it? They called it equity in healthcare worldwide. Okay? So, is this a virus? It may be. I can't say that it's not. Probably is. But did they know it was coming? I would say they orchestrated it.
Well,
here's one if you want some.
John, let me just tell you, you're assuming I'm disagreeing with you. I'm kind of taking a neutral approach on this one because I don't know. I know what John Rappaport, whom I highly respect, by the way, he seems to think the whole thing is a hoax. And, I mean, this is not some nutcase. This is a former CBS this guy's done thing for LA Weekly. LA Weekly, I think it was LA Weekly that nominated him for a Pulitzer. There were a number of different mainstream publications he's written for over the years. Now, of course, I don't think any of them will have him now because he's been telling a lot of the truth, and he's been reporting on these pandemics for many, many years. And like I say, he was the health reporter, CBS Health Watch, for a long time. I remember him being on TV, I think when I was a kid. Anyway, the point is that he's coming out and he's saying that this whole thing, he's the one that I got the PCR test information from. And I've read articles on the show from him about that, saying that the biggest problem, and I don't want to put words in his mouth, as I understand his argument, and it makes sense to me, the biggest problem is not that you get the virus, any virus that might make you sick. The problem is if it's duplicating enough in the body to overcome your immune system and then make you sick. That's the issue. And he says the fact that they're using the PCR test, and I know they are because I went to the CDC website and they said it was the test that they're using. The PCR test is designed to take a small, tiny little fragment of a virus and blow it up so you can actually see it. So the fact that they're having to do that indicates that the virus is so small and minute in a sick patient, and that's the key, that there's not enough of the virus there to make them sick. That's what he's saying. Early on, the numbers we were getting out of China, they were largely coming from CT scans. And you can't use a CT scan to detect a virus. You can use a CT scan to detect pneumonia, but anything could have caused that pneumonia. So a lot of the numbers we were getting were being caused by likely other factors. So we don't really know, I don't think we really know what we're dealing with here. Obviously, people are getting sick from something. And that's the point. So I'm not saying it's a hoax. I'm saying I question the numbers. And as you look at the government response, and as you look at all of the things that are going on around us right now, which plays perfectly into a martial law, police state type of situation where they're having free reign to crack down on people, free reign to quarantine neighborhoods, free reign to essentially do whatever the hell they want. I think it's time people ask questions and push back a little bit. That's all I'm saying.
Okay, now let me tell you what I found, John. You're going to appreciate this, I think. This morning I was doing some searching because I have a little different idea about what's going on. I went to the CDC website, and on that website there is a blown-up image of the virus. And when you look at that virus, it's like a round...
It's a ball.
Cell. It's a ball. And the coronas, apparently, if they're the coronas, I don't know, they're little red triangles.
Brown virus. Yeah.
Yeah, what she's saying...
Just go to the cdc.gov and look at the coronavirus.
I did this morning. It's the same thing, I think, in the NIH website as well.
Right, okay, and below these little triangles that are kind of lifted up above, there are some, I'd call them salmon-colored spots, and then there are yellow, a couple of yellow spots. I believe that what that is the model of the research triangle design of what I called the Trojan triangle when I didn't know exactly what it was that I was looking at, but it is the connection of medical research locations in the global system. It's symbolic.
Yeah.
It's symbolic. What I'm saying is
that was no accident.
The image of the coronavirus is symbolic.
Yeah, there's no way that's an accident or haphazard. I mean, they design these things with certain things in mind. Go ahead.
I've been to the CDC as well, and I looked for the basis that they would declare a isolation or a quarantinable event. And you go on there, and they've got this this form. It's a quarantine order, and it outlines what would warrant a quarantine. And they list 6 specific diseases: yellow fever, contagious tuberculosis. There's 4 others, and then there's some general ones. And the last one on the list is COVID-19. No, well, it doesn't say COVID-19. It says flus that cause or could cause epidemic. Okay, so then you go to what the order for a quarantine looks like, and they've got a sample order. It's a read-only image, and it takes you to, and the example that they use is COVID-19. So for someone that has computer skills, I'd like to know when that image was uploaded. Was it after December 31st? Was it 2 years ago? Was it a year ago? And then at the top of the page it says, who has the authority? And in big bold letters, federal government. Because of a proclamation of the president with an executive order or an edict from the president, giving the CDC power to exercise whatever they think. It's very dangerous.
Yeah, it is very dangerous.
It's outrageous, the power that's given to them, because they can't just arrest you, supposedly, Vicky, but they can diagnose you arbitrarily and say you've got COVID-19, you're in quarantine, you're highly contagious, and then it talks about treatment of those exhibiting symptoms, and then it shows people that are atypical with no symptoms that could still be contagious. Well,
right. It's like they're just making it all. They're making it up, you know.
They're covering They're covering everybody because they're going to have people with no symptoms that they still want quarantined. So they say, "Well, you're asymptomatic, but you're contagious."
Well, in the
even in a dystopia of people.
Go ahead, Vicky.
They're going to move the agenda along with this. That's the whole purpose of this, because they're saying different people are saying different things, and none of it matches up, and none of it really matches up with the threat. It's a flu virus. So in the show notes, there's going to be a link to a presentation by IBM on the research triangle in North Carolina. And the little triangle viruses that are on the image of the virus, that's where I made the connection with the research triangle. And so go look at that and read that, because that is the design. What they came up with there is the design for of research libraries around the entire world. This is like a global health system. This is the global health system, but it's the underside of it that is going to be genetic biological research. There, I said it. And I've got documentation to back it up.
Wow.
One other thing, if I can, Darren, you know my thoughts on 5G.
Yeah.
I think it's playing a part. If it is a virus, I think that the 5G, Vicky, 60 gigahertz, 60 billion cycles per second.
That's extremely high microwave.
Well, it creates a oxygen uptake problem in your blood at the mitochondrial level. So your blood is not able to take oxygen throughout your body like it's supposed to, including your lungs, including your heart. And with low oxygen levels, you faint. With high oxygen levels, you could stroke. Your blood pressure goes up, you could stroke. So here's the thing. We're told that it's a virus. I'm not saying that it's not. But the symptoms that we're seeing in the people that are being diagnosed with coronavirus or COVID-19 are identical to RF sickness. So are we, and people say, well, what about the cruise ship, John? Well, it's called the Carnival Princess Cruise Line, the Medallion-class ships, which are part of their sales pitch on Princess Cruise Line's website, is 5G internet while at sea using technologies that are beaming up to middle Earth orbiting satellites or mid-Earth orbiting satellites that have great coverage around the equator, where you can do anything that you can do in your living room, you can do on this ship. And in order to access it, you wear a medallion that is an RF transmitter, and you wear it around your neck.
Really?
Wow.
You wear these things around your neck?
If you wear them around your neck or on your wrist.
Wow, I didn't know they were doing that.
If it's an RF transmitter around your neck, it's near your heart, folks. And
yeah.
Why you're getting sick.
Well, there's a lot of theories about too.
Quarantine.
I didn't know that about the cruise lines, but there's a lot of theories.
I found it out 2 days ago.
About this popcorn lung, some of these cases, because China's now accusing the United States. I didn't mean to get into this early, but China's now accusing the United States of introducing this over there. And I think they have a compelling argument. I'll get into it a little bit more as time progresses.
Well, China still jumped on board. They put 130,000 5G base stations in Wuhan in the last 2 years and fired them up 2 weeks before the coronavirus broke out in Wuhan. And you don't, Vicky, when you get the flu, you get feeling bad and you want to stay in bed. These people were conducting everyday normal life and just falling over at the street corner. That sounds like weaponized RF frequency or electronic warfare or whatever name you want to put on it. I think we're seeing maybe a little bit of both, guys.
Yeah, it's possible.
Plausible deniability? Plausible deniability. Do you really think I can make you sick? Who do you think I am?
Well, and there's certain segments of the population that are more susceptible to RF sickness.
Absolutely. But let me finish this really quick.
Okay.
I've got to go pretty soon. If Royal Raymond Rife was able to cure diseases by generating specific frequencies, does it not make sense, Vicky, that you can create disease if you can get the right frequency? If we are electric,
it does,
or the body electric. And
I agree.
With transhumanism,
yeah,
I'd like to hear other people's comments. But Vicky, if you'll give Darren your cell, I'll send you, or some way, I'll send it to Darren. He can send it to you. I've got a couple videos that I think you would really love to see.
Okay. All right. Good. Yeah, I'd like to see them.
All right, Darren. I don't know how to call in and listen. The numbers have changed. So
yeah, unfortunately, that stupid listen thing isn't working either. I contacted them. It's a free service, so they don't have to respond to me, and they're not now. So
can you get it on the web?
I'll tell you what.
Still,
can you call on the which number? Just hang through the break, and I'll talk to you about it. I got to take the break. Stay with us, folks. We'll be back.
Where the spooks go to find out what's really going on. This is Govern America.
To unleash the full power of the federal government in this effort today, I am officially declaring a national emergency. Two very big words. The action I am taking will open up access to up to $50 billion of very important and a large amount of money for states and territories and localities in our shared fight against this disease. In furtherance of the order, I'm urging every state to set up emergency operation centers effective immediately. You're going to be hearing from some of the largest companies and greatest retailers and medical companies in the world. They're standing right behind me and inside of me. I'm also asking every hospital in this country to activate its emergency preparedness plan so that they can meet the needs of Americans everywhere. The hospitals are very engaged. The emergency orders I'm issuing today will also confer broad new authority to the Secretary of Health and Human Services. The Secretary of HHS will be able to immediately waive provisions of applicable laws and regulations to give doctors, all hospitals, and healthcare providers maximum flexibility to respond to the virus and care for patients.
That was President Trump yesterday in the Rose Garden, declaring a national emergency to deal with the coronavirus. And now, what is the result of this? Well, FEMA is going to be in charge of a lot of our country. FEMA is going to be in charge under the Stafford Act. And I have printed out the nearly 200 pages of the Stafford Act. There's a lot to it. And so I'm going to be going through that in the coming days. The table of contents is just quite daunting by itself. Emergency support and response teams. There's provisions in here for grants, government grants. A lot of this stuff, we told you folks early on, a lot of this stuff is about the money. And I balked at the billions. What was it, the $8.3 billion bill that he had passed? The Congress passed, and now they're talking $50 billion that they're going to be spending on this. It's the build out for the technocratic tyranny is what it is, and a lot of the money will go to the hospitals that are the centers or that are the anchors for
the Trojan Triangle system that I...
Yeah, briefly explain that to people who haven't been listening to the show. Trojan Triangles, you got the public sector. Go ahead.
Yeah, what I called the Trojan Triangle system. In Meridian, Idaho, I watched as basically they were developing a construct. And what called my attention to it was that there was an EB5 center, and they were trying to bring in communist Chinese money, investors, into this center that I called it Trojan Triangle because I didn't know exactly what it was. But I knew there were like 3 elements to it. It involved the transportation system. I heard a beep.
Oh, don't worry about it. It was
okay. The education system and the community, and the properties that were being developed there were rather odd. There was you couldn't find out who owned those facilities. Well, from the article that was in the newspaper, I spoke to the economic development specialist in Meridian, and she told me at the time that they were thinking about putting in a foreign trade zone in there. And so I kind of went off on a tangent with foreign trade zones and the
transportation system.
Right, but ultimately what it turns out to be is a research, like the Research Triangle in North Carolina, it is a workforce development zone. So it's a layered construct where they have to get money and pass legislation for each one of the elements in this tiered structure that I called a Trojan Triangle, modeled after the Research Triangle in North Carolina.
Yeah. So basically what it is transportation, education, and civil society, basically the community. And this model is being stamped out all over the place. This is the same. They're using the same model everywhere, and we've been talking about this on the show now for years.
And it is central economic planning because the first thing they do is a cluster study of the economy.
Of the economy?
Yeah, and a cluster study looks for the largest employers in the area and their suppliers so that they can establish a supply chain system through
the port.
In order to make them supposedly globally competitive. And that idea came from Michael Porter, who was a professor at Harvard, and he was also an economic thought leader at the Economic Development Administration for the government. So all of these layers that they're building, they were all planned for a purpose for this particular location that also happens to be an inland port ultimately.
Yeah.
Now, when they first started out, it may not be an inland port, but the idea of the inland port under the World Trade Organization, the GATS agreement, is ports are special locations for commerce.
Yeah.
And in the global economy of international commerce, they become special locations by virtue of their connections to each other on the interstate highway system that they then call a corridor when it comes from either a body of water or from a foreign country, Mexico or Canada.
Yeah, so these inland ports or Trojan Triangles, there's different names. The Trojan Triangle name, as Vicky said, is the name she gave to it, but they call them different things. They call them special economic zones, opportunity zones, various things that, depending upon the location, but it's all essentially the same thing.
In the show notes, there is going to be that a link to that document. When I found it and I was writing about it, I saved that. You can't get that online anymore, and it's not in the Internet Archives. But when you look at it and you compare what I'm saying, you can see why. Yeah. Because that was the design for these university knowledge economy centers. That's what they are, part of the knowledge economy, and it is a global system, which is why they are in the ports, because it's part of the global system. It gets deep and it's complicated, and you really have to take a look at it. But it's Trojan triangles are layered constructs for
it's bringing
the
world
global
government.
Economy.
It's bringing international globalism and world government into your own backyard, and it's these are global ports, and they operate under international law, and the fact that Trump is playing along with this indicates that he is. I mean, what would you say? This isn't putting America first, that's for sure.
Well, I saw something interesting in that report, and the company that was most behind it is IBM. Okay, So IBM was really behind the creation of the research triangle in North Carolina from the beginning.
Yeah. Hey, we still have John on the line. John, did you? You have no way of getting to the listen page.
Well, I'm not online right now. I'm on the phone. I was in the truck, so I can't surf. I can't get to the web page. I mean, I can now. I'm stationary. Question, Vicky, it's amazing. FEMA is now involved. It started out as a federal emergency military agency. Then they were the Federal Emergency Management Agency. I suppose now they're the Federal Emergency Medical Agency.
Well, I can explain that to you. The transportation system included the hospital emergency rooms. And that was put into law in the, 1966 or something like that. And so that's what brings the hospitals into the Trojan Triangle system. It's all connected, and the network of connections for all of this, they're all connected to the fusion centers. That's where the fusion centers come in.
Yeah.
For emergency management.
Yeah, and for listeners that don't understand that, fusion centers are Department of Homeland Security. They're basically, it's the federal government bringing, federalizing your local law enforcement. They are connecting with your local law enforcement to basically turn them into intelligence spies into your local community, and they're databasing everything, looking for terrorism, looking for pre-crime, just like Minority Report. These fusion centers are there. They're intelligence gathering operations at your local police department. That's what it's all about. So
they're not at the police department. They're separate.
Well, they're at the regional centers, but all of it's connected.
Yes.
Yeah. So.
Well, I'm seeing now, guys, so much of what Orwell was talking about, where you had this screen in your house that you couldn't turn off and you had to hide from it. We're even seeing that now. We're all carrying them. Our televisions are doing it, and now they're touting this interactive health system. Have you seen the mirror, Vicky?
I haven't seen the mirror, but I do know that telemedicine is a big part of it. And if you notice, when Trump gave his statement, he did mention telemedicine.
Well, I'll send you the mirror, Darren, and then I'll hang up and try and get online. It's governamerica.com.
Yes.
Help me.
You can go to governamerica.com/listen.
Right.
And if you need me to, I could leave you on the line. Which number did you call?
Well, if you could for a little, let me look. I dialed, it doesn't say.
Okay. All right, well.
It doesn't say. If you can for a moment.
Do you have free line? Okay, I'll just mute you. How's that?
That'll be fine. I'll send you a link to the mirror, and you can share that with Vicky. I think she'll enjoy the technology behind it. But it's basically an interactive exercise system where everyone, people get in their leotards and their tights, flexing their muscles, showing body parts, and it's all connected to the web. And you've got a life coach on the other side. So there's no privacy, and people think they're doing themselves a favor. It's craziness.
Wow.
And we're in an area where people that are smart are really stupid. All right.
Yeah. Hey, thanks, John.
All you have to do is feed their ego and tell them that they're at the cutting edge. They're at the what's happening, and they'll fall for just about anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, but telemedicine, telehealth. If you noticed when Trump talked about that, he also mentioned basically suspending licensing laws so that we could have he didn't say, he said doctors from other states help, except that I've always known that it was going to be for foreign doctors so that when you, and for medical research.
Yeah.
But when, so that you can have a doctor from Africa or somewhere, or from India, or, that speaks English, because it's cheaper. The insurance companies will provide you with a teledoctor, from some third world country.
Yeah. We have another call on the line. Let's go to Jerry in Texas. Jerry, you're on the air.
Okay. Good morning, Vicky and Darren and all. I'll make this brief after we're out in the barn. I'm going to try to get into a quiet zone here if it's possible.
You got a squealing pig there, don't you?
Huh?
You got a squealing pig.
No, actually, that's guineas. That's our organic version of bug control, grasshoppers and this sort of thing.
Oh, interesting. Well, I got. Here's a squealing pig. So we just got all kinds of barnyard.
Guardian puppies and all sorts of things here.
That's okay. We'll fit in. I'll squeal my pig here, and we'll just have barnyard radio. I love it.
Well, yeah, but it can get very distracting. The roosters start crowing, and then
that's okay.
About 80 goat kids on the ground from less than 24 hours old to 3 weeks. So milking about 14 nannies a day, so twice a day.
Wow.
So we got, not that we're making any money at it, and sometimes we don't even have any fun. But
hey, you're an American farmer. You're not going to make money. What's money?
Well, this is true. We got.
It's like Derry Brownfield used to say: "You're land rich and dirt poor."
Well, yeah, something like that. Yeah, and so long as we got the property tax, ad valorem tax, we are poor. But we beat that horse to death a few times.
Yeah.
You remember that? I don't know. It may still be out there. That I was on TV and maybe online now. That where is what was it? Carmen Sandiego.
Where in the world is Carmen Sandiego? That was a game.
Okay. It's interesting. I haven't heard or read anything about the United Nations leaders, the EU leaders. We just got an announcement that the philanthropist Bill Gates is retiring from Microsoft to bug out to Safe Haven.
I think he's going to spend more time on this trying to kill off people. That's what I think.
Well, I think he's going to duck and cover.
but he's going to be in a safe place while he does it, you see.
Yeah.
But just 2 or 3 bullet points, and I'll get out of here. It's on, I've read it. It's mainstream on Yahoo or AOL. I don't get TV, so my news is either over the ham radio, which everybody ought to get their ham radio license so that we've got a standalone communication. Just to plug there, nothing to gain by it. But, cell phones go down. By the way, that call-in number, if John's having problems with, if it's the same one that I use, sometimes I'll have to dial it 3 or 4 times before I make connection.
Does it still work? Because every time I try to call it, it says the show's offline.
Well, wait a few minutes, a couple of minutes, try it again, you'll connect, or at least I do, as a general rule.
Okay, well, I'll give the number, but I can't guarantee it'll work. As I said, it's a free service. It's area code 701-719-5231. That's the listen-only line if you can get the thing to work. 701-719-5231. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
That's all right. I'm glad you put it down. Just stay persistent because I've tried 2 or 3 times to give up, and 5 minutes later I'll try it again. Of course, I've missed 5 minutes of important conversation, but hey, I can go back to archives and pick that up. But anyway, there's a lot of these. Where's George Soros, by the way? We hadn't heard anything from him, but kind of curious. Back to my conversation, there's a article about this young lady, 37 years old. That's young for me. Up in Seattle, Washington, that went to a house party, and a couple of days later, she got to feeling sick. 101 temperature spiked to 103. Went to the doctor, and it wasn't a flu. Wasn't sure what was going on. And about a dozen of her friends come down with it at the same time. And that moral of her story says, don't panic. They finally got a kit and did a nasal swab and sent it in. Yes, they had the COVID-19, but it lasted about 3 days, and they're fine now.
Yeah.
So, it's going to affect people, us people of older age, it seems, if we got underlying issues. But, hey, what is it, between 700, we talked about that last week, between 700 and 750 people a week die from pneumonia, the flu, pandemic proportions there. How about we need to ban cars because about the same number of people die at automobile-related accidents every week, about between 700 and 750 people. It's pandemic.
Yeah, according to Johns Hopkins, they're saying 149,293 people have been infected. This is worldwide. And of those, only 5,609 people have died. Now, of course, I'm not trying to minimize a death. If it's really, if people have died, it's always a tragedy that people have died. So please understand, I'm not downplaying that tragedy. But statistically, it's a small percentage of people that have died. 72,042 have recovered. So many people do recover. And, as with anything, it's always, it's always the people with compromised immune systems. And many of the people, too, by the way, have had underlying health issues. Many of the people who have died have had other issues that have not been related to this so-called virus. So, what do you make of this? I don't know.
Compromise. I don't know. It's just what is that? What's it? Colony of Obama said, "Don't let a good crisis go to waste."
That's Rahm Emanuel.
Yeah. Look what they've done to the stock market. I've got a theory, folks. They're trying to kill off all of us old folks so they don't have to fund Medicare, Medicaid, and the insurance companies get a greater profit when we all die.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I would tend to
You never want a serious crisis
there.
to go to waste. And what I mean by that, it's an opportunity to do things that you think you could not do before.
That's Rahm Emanuel.
Yeah. I'm very suspicious on a lot of things, but I can't believe that, here in the little old town about 25 miles from here. The last one major store, I don't know which grocery store, Walmart or what, somebody went in and bought the last 2 bags of dog food that was on the shelf. No toilet paper to be found. A friend of mine, acquaintance, told him in Colleen area, some lady bought some baby wipes, was unloading stuff in her car, and another woman run by and grabbed them and took off running, stole her wipes, you know.
Stole her what?
Yeah. These baby wipes, you know.
Oh, okay, the wipes. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, you know.
Unbelievable.
You know, give me a break, folks.
It's you know, you remember that Tickle Me Elmo craze? You remember how they have different I don't know, something about the demand of a product that makes everybody want the product. It's the craziest thing. You know, years from now, people who study human psychology should do a study on exactly why that is. What is it about the primitive nature of human beings that cause them to revert back to an animalistic type of it's almost like it gets down to the most basic primitive aspect of human nature, where you could have a million things around you of the same kind and nobody wants it, and yet if there's a shortage of something, makes people desire it all that more. You know, and this is a created scenario. You don't need toilet paper. I mean, it's not a life or death thing. It's a luxury item. Sure, nobody wants to be without it. Well,
not to gross people out, but you know, they've got these little bidettes that you can add to these toilets that work great so long as you got water pressure. But I run across an article here several years ago now. This young lady, she took something like baby blankets, washed them and cut them up in like 6-inch squares, and rewashable wipes for the toilet. And we've been doing that here for several years now. We've got maybe 2 rolls of toilet paper in the house for if somebody happens to come by to visit, it's out there for their use. We recycle.
Yikes.
We recycle.
I'm sorry.
Well, I'll tell you what.
It's a good idea, though, in an extreme emergency.
Okay, we got the top of the hour break, guys. Jerry, do you have anything else?
Nothing. Y'all have a good weekend, and as I always, pray for our country and pray for our president. And remember, but for the grace of God, this country would not probably have come into existence.
That's right. Well, thanks, Jerry. I appreciate the call. We got the break. God bless you, sir.
Before us the opportunity to forge for ourselves and for future generations a new world order.
New world order.
New world order. This is a moment to seize. The kaleidoscope has been shaken. The pieces are in flux. Soon they will settle again. Before they do, let us reorder this world around us.
A new world order.
A world where the United Nations is poised to fulfill the historic vision of its founders.
Nevertheless, the United States is in a key position to shape this so that the problem of the Bush presidency will be the emergence of a new international order.
The first decade of the 21st century, that out of what will be seen as the greatest restructuring of the global economy, a new world order was created.
Documenting the crisis of our republic.
The very word secrecy is repugnant in a free and open society. And we are, as a people, inherently and historically opposed to secret societies, to secret oaths, and to secret proceedings.
Waging war on the New World Order.
The councils of government, we must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex.
This is Govern America with Darren Weeks and Vicky Davis.
This includes the following critical authorities: the ability to waive laws to enable telehealth. It gives remote doctors visits and hospital check-ins, the power to waive certain federal license requirements so that doctors from other states can provide services in states with the greatest need. Number two, the ability to waive requirements that critical access hospitals limit the number of beds to 25 and the length of stay to 96 hours. The ability to waive the requirements of a 3-day hospital stay prior to admission to a nursing home, big thing. The authority to waive the rules to hinder hospitals' ability to bring additional physicians on board or obtain needed office space. They can do as they want. They can do what they have to do. They know what they have to do. Now they don't have any problem getting it done. The authority to waive rules that severely restrict where hospitals can care for patients within the hospital itself, ensuring that the emergency capacity can be quickly established. Will remove or eliminate every obstacle necessary to deliver our people the care that they need and that they're entitled to.
Live from FEMA Regions 5 and 10, this is Govern America. I'm Darren Weeks. Vicky Davis is here as well. It continues to be the 14th of March, and that was Friday the 13th. He made this announcement yesterday that the United States is under yet another declared state of emergency regarding the coronavirus.
And notice also that it's COVID-19, 1991.
Yeah. And all of these...
1919.
Yeah, good point. And here we were thinking that it was just the reason... The reason that they do this was because it emerged in 2019. But even that, you got to question whether or not this whole thing is engineered and planned. Folks, it's 2020. They've been wanting to lock the country down for years. How long is this going to last? Will some of these things be permanent? Will some of these types of, certainly the agenda that they're pushing forward for the technocratic tyranny certainly will be permanent because they're building the infrastructure for control all around us. And they've been doing so for years. And these types of events help them free up the money necessary to do that. But the interesting thing that he was talking in there was about telehealth, Vicky. I don't know if you had any thoughts on that. We have another caller on the line.
Oh, yeah. 1996 is when they rolled out the first version of telehealth, and I told you that it was they developed it as a system for doctor-patient encounters when the patient is in the prison.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that's supposedly why it was developed. But I've been tracking this whole redesign of our healthcare system since 1990. I haven't been tracking it since 1990, but where I found that it began was in 1990. And it was also in connection with the Human Genome Project, which was also kicked off in 1990.
Interesting.
Okay, initially I thought that the Human Genome Project was strictly about research, applied genetic research.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that they are using the term genome, human genome, symbolically for an entire management system for people. It's not just because it's another layered construct. It includes the entire way that we live, which is the technocratic tyranny that they're building. It covers the entire way that the regular people live on this planet.
Yeah, indeed. I'll tell you what.
And let me just say this one more thing. I do not have the kind of imagination to make all of this up.
No.
When I talk about this, I'm talking about the documentation that I found and the timeline in which it occurred and how these things have been phased in over time.
Anybody can do the research. all the research. By the way, I should give out the websites. governamerica.com is our website for the show. You can get past broadcasts. You can listen live. You can subscribe to the podcast. There's a bunch of news and information that's automatically updated on the main page, on a continual basis. So you can get all of the news sources, and we're, adding more things all the time. So anyway, governamerica.com is the website for that. radio@governamerica.com is my email. Vicky, you want to go ahead and give your information out? The stuff she was just talking about, folks, you can get on her website. She's been doing research for years, if you're not familiar with it. And there's links to the original documents. So, you don't have to guess at this stuff. You can get down in the weeds. Go ahead, Vicky.
My newer website is thetechnocratictyranny.com. And my older website is channelingreality.com. And you can get to either website. If you get to one, you can get to the other.
Okay, cross-linked.
Mm-hmm.
And your email is?
eyeswideopen@channelingreality.com. But there are two O's, eyeswideoopen @channelingreality.com.
All right. And we're moving along here. Let's go ahead and go to Georgia and take a call from Georgia. Hello, caller. You're on the air.
Yeah, it's me again. I'm using my landline, so I'm not showing up in some strange, secure location.
Yeah, very good. We never know where in the world art will pop up next. Anyway, go ahead.
Oh, yeah. Hey, where in the world is Carmen Sandiego? We started a new one. Where in the world is art?
Yeah, there you go.
Anyway, a couple things, not a whole lot, not getting a whole lot of voice time, and we can talk about things that have happened up to this point, but I'm looking a little bit more forward here with, it sounds like there's a lot of talk now, we might actually see Andrew Yang's universal income become a reality. If that does, good luck, because of all the...
There has been talk about that.
Forward, yes, the package...
Well, if you understand the global economy, you understand why. Because they have designed... The 21st century economy is one for intellectuals, for people that have IQs over 120, with 120 being at the bottom side. Yeah. So if you don't have an IQ like that, you're just kind of SOL in the global economy. And so it's easier to give you a guaranteed income until such time as they can figure out what to do with you.
Yeah, and if you're...
So here we're presented with a slight bit of a problem, because this actually sets the stage. Although it's a temporary relief package, it sets the stage and opens things up for the universal income. And once you start that, good luck rescinding that. But here's another one. Donald Trump is talking about, well, let's suspend the federal income tax, and I don't know what the time period is, blah, 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 blah. But if they do that, good luck reinstating it without starting a bunch of poo-poo over there.
Well, if they suspend it, and see,
a lot of people are going to be pissed off.
Well, I'm very suspicious.
And again,
Art, if they do this, make no mistake, they have something else in the works.
They already have that base covered. You're exactly right, Darren. And what it is, it's the fair tax, which is a tax, like a sales tax on every dime that you spend. And it would be collected by corporations, and it's all part of the plan for the end of the nation state, because the income tax is a national tax collected by government for the purpose of government. But in 2005, they came up with what they called the fair tax plan, and it was supposed to be everything that they said about that, they lied about. They said it was like a 23% tax, but there was a trick in the way that it was calculated, and it'd be more like 30% on top of whatever it is that you purchase, and it would be everything. So if you buy, you pay for your utility bills, and there would be a tax on there that is actually this sales tax.
Yeah,
I think they've got it covered. They've got it all covered. I don't think I've missed much.
You're rattling your microphone there a little bit, Vicky. Try to avoid rattling your mic there.
Here's what troubles me about this whole deal. We have a local talk radio station here. It's about an hour drive from me over in Augusta, Georgia. And we have our local talk radio host who comes on. First we have 3 hours of Glenn Beck, then we got 3 hours of Rush Limbaugh, and then we have 3 hours of our local celebrity, if you will, prior to Mark Levin coming on. So from 3 to 6 p.m., Monday through Friday, we get this local guy comes on, lives in Augusta, and he talks about what's happening around there, and he takes calls. Well, I'm hearing a lot. I'm hearing more than I care to hear. People talking about, well, if it's really that bad and they're having to postpone these political rallies and Trump is now postponing rallies and this, that, and the other and blah-de-blah-de-blah, maybe, what do you think about maybe we should postpone the elections until after all of this is cleared by and blah, 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 blah.
Wow.
Here's what I'm thinking. And I want you and Vicky to tell me if I'm just being paranoid or whatever. In order to temporarily postpone, or whatever you want to call it, the election for the president and so on, does that not require an executive order of some sort or a congressional order of some sort? And when they do that, do they not also follow up when postponing or whatever you want to call it, canceling, whatever, the elections, do they not also have to suspend the Constitution?
Well, yeah, I would think that they would have to. Well, he just did declare a national emergency, didn't he?
Yeah, he just did. The other thing is...
But that's not the same thing as postponing or temporarily suspending whatever elections and suspending the Constitution. That's not...
I think it would have... Wouldn't it depend upon how long they suspend it for? That's
what I'm wondering.
Yeah, I think that's one of those gray areas, Art. They have to have the elections, but I don't think it's going to happen because I'll tell you what, if Trump tried to do this by executive order, the Democrats and the media would go ape crap on him. So I don't see that happening. And in Congress, if the Republicans floated it, they would go nuts. And I don't see the Democrats doing it at all. So
You know what, though? You remember on 911, Rudy Giuliani was the mayor, and Bloomberg was the, I don't know if he was mayor in waiting for the end of Giuliani's term or what, but Giuliani suggested not doing the handover to the new mayor because of 911.
Interesting. Well, I don't hear any talk about them delaying elections. And some people are even floating the idea that this whole thing could be a way for them to use, like Russia 2.0, more like 3.0 or 4.0. But anyway, another idea, another plan to get Trump out because they're going to say he mishandled this whole thing. So, I don't know if I buy into that because this is an awful lot of... But I did want to go back to Bloomberg for a minute because last week we played audio from Michael Bloomberg. And I'll get your take on this too, Art. He made the statement to the effect that Trump's election was the people rising up against the intelligence establishment. Okay? And that I believe. I've made that case myself. I don't think Trump was the choice of the intelligence establishment. They were clearly against him. He's playing along with everything. But I don't think he was the number one choice. I think they wanted Hillary in there. But the point is not so much that part of it. There's another angle to this. Let me go ahead and play the audio real quick. It's a real short clip. And then I'll tell you what I think on the other, because it's a remarkable admission when you think about it. Here's Michael Bloomberg when he was still in the 2020 presidential race.
But you have to have somebody that's been there, done that, and will do it right, and will guide us through the tough times, particularly day one.
What does the data today tell you about the voter that leads you to believe that you can win?
A few years ago, there was a revolution against the intelligentsia. People said, you know, those people, particularly on the coasts, are trying to tell us what to do. They wanted a change. That explains Donald Trump. Now, people seem to have changed. This cycle, people want stability.
What he's saying here, and I missed it last week, I should have pointed this out. He's saying that he represents the intelligence establishment, and the people want the stability that the intelligence establishment will give them in the 2020 election.
Yeah, well, let me
people
tell you
are
what,
wanting stability.
Bloomberg is associated with the Johns Hopkins Bloomberg School of Public Health. Bloomberg knows all about this.
Isn't this remarkable, though? Isn't this a remarkable? Let us here, let the deep state, the intelligence establishment, rule over you, because we'll give you the stability Donald Trump can't. I just, it's amazing. It's quite a remarkable admission, and I'm surprised I missed it last week.
Well, Bloomberg wants to be able to roll this thing out with, a Nurse Ratched voice, so everybody goes to sleep. Trump is out there, being the center of attention while this whole thing is being rolled out, and for that, it's a good thing that he is like a lightning rod, because he's calling attention. And if you're paying attention, if you know
what to look for,
okay, like his announcement, all these big pharma guys, and the Walmart CEO, you know that the plan to have Walmarts be clinics goes back to about 2004, when a guy named John Aguinobi was made the first direct.
Okay. Are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, you cut out for a second. Tell you what, let me go ahead. Remember what you're going to say, because you just referenced something that they mentioned in that press conference yesterday. Again, Friday the 13th, ladies and gentlemen. They do this. It's all these symbols mean stuff. They do this on purpose. But anyway, this is Debbie Birx. This is the woman who we were mentioning last week that Trump has put in charge of this operation. She is the one that was involved in the whole HIV/AIDS Africa thing, and she's speaking about this yesterday at the press conference about the new way, how they're going forward with this testing procedure, and this ties into what Vicky was just referencing about Walmart. They're planning on using Walmart parking lots as drive-through centers. They had all these executives, CEOs. I don't know if they're all CEOs, but these representatives from these various companies get up and speak at this press conference. And one of those was a representative from Walmart. And that's what they're planning on doing. Since there's so many different Walmarts, they're using a portion of Walmart's parking lot. Anyway, this is Debbie Birx.
I think at the beginning of this epidemic, HHS through CDC proactively developed an assay built on the existing flu surveillance system. That surveillance system was then converted to diagnostic system. But last Tuesday, seeing the spread of the virus around the globe, the President realized that our current approach to testing was inadequate to meet the needs of the American public. He asked for an entire overhaul of the testing approach. He immediately called the private sector laboratories to the White House, as noted, and charged them with developing a high-throughput quality platform that can meet the needs of the American public. We are grateful to LabCorp and Quest for taking up the charge immediately after the meeting, and within 72 hours bringing additional testing access, particularly to the outbreak areas of Washington State and California, and now across the country. We are also very grateful to the universities and large hospital systems that took up the charge to develop their own quality tests, made available by new FDA guidance. This has resulted in expanded testing across New York, California, Washington, Colorado, and you see sometimes those drive-through options that have been made available through these high-throughput options. Last night, the initial company, Roche, received FDA approval, moving from request to development to approval in record time. This innovative approach centered fully on unleashing the power of the private sector, focusing on providing convenient testing to hundreds of thousands of Americans within short turnaround times. In less than 2 weeks together, we have developed a solution that we believe will meet the future testing needs of Americans. This intense effort has not only resulted in innovative solutions, but an automated, high-throughput system bringing the availability of these quality coronavirus testing to the American people at unprecedented speed. So we want to also announce this new approach to testing, which will start in the screening website up here, facilitated by Google, where clients and patients and people of interest can go, fill out a screening questionnaire, move down for symptoms or risk factors, yes. They would move down this and be told where the drive-through options would be for them to receive this test. The labs will then move to the high-throughput automated machines to be able to provide results in 24 to 36 hours. That is the intent of this approach. We have seen it work just in our own United States, and we want to bring this across the continent.
So there you go. They're going to have a screening website. If your symptoms are yes, then you go to your local drive-through testing center in the Walmart parking lot and be swabbed, I guess. And then it will go off to wherever it goes, and you'll be notified whether you have it or not.
Right, Walmart and Walgreens.
Yeah.
And if you notice, both Walmart and Walgreens already have the drive-up window, just like you're going to your local fast food place. See, that they started on this plan, I forget what year it was, 2006 or 7, when they first announced this. When they first, it was with the Ebola virus, I think. When they were going to use the Ebola virus for this rollout, that's when they first mentioned in their paperwork having these drive-up tests, drive-up testing facilities.
Keep in mind, too, Walmarts are also classified as FEMA certified. I don't know if the word quarantine would be correct, but Walmart has an agreement with FEMA to act as facilities to house people in cases of national emergency.
So you'd have a quarantine center right there.
FEMA camps.
Yeah.
FEMA camps. They're actually certified as FEMA camps because they have the facility, they have the space, they have the parking lot, they have everything that they need right there at your local Walmart to turn it into literally one big, giant, open-air FEMA camp.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, but here's this is where I see a major problem. As long as we continue, I mean, I was reading an article this morning, I forget who it was, dropped a link in one of the chat rooms about a homeless guy who somehow managed to get out of the motel that had been turned into a quarantine unit.
Mm-hmm.
There, walked across the street, robbed a 7-Eleven, jumped on a city bus, and boom, he's gone. We had 2 idiots in New Hampshire who were told self-quarantine. What do? They go out and they go to events risking people because they tested positive. Then we had this jackass, excuse my language because I know you guys don't speak like this, but we had this moron in New Hampshire who works in a damn hospital, tests positive, told to quarantine, and what does he do? He goes across the state line to Vermont to a political rally.
Mm.
Are you? And as long as we have people like this, people who should know better.
Yeah. Well, people should, even if you have an ordinary cold, you shouldn't expose other people to it. It's impolite. It's impolite.
It is.
Yeah.
Here's the thing, and here's what I tell people. I started about a week and a half ago, I started with the sneezing and the coughing and things that I normally do this time of year because of pollen. I'm walking around in my yard, and all of my shoes are just walking around the yard. My shoes are covered in pollen. I have severe pollen allergies. But I was also out Monday doing some shopping, paying bills, and picking up supplies because I felt there was a need to kind of stock up on a few things. I've let go a little bit. But I'm out, and I went to several different places, came in contact with several different people. So what did I do? I came home. I don't really have anything pressing that I need to do. So just for the sake of safety and security, I'm going to self-quarantine. I'm going to take it upon myself to self-quarantine myself because I am coughing, I am stuffy nose, I am sniffling. These are all flu-like symptoms. I have achy muscles. These are all flu-like symptoms. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to self-quarantine for 14 days. I'm going to see what happens. But
I'll bet nothing.
Taking proactive steps.
Yeah, exactly.
This is what people need to be doing.
Exactly.
Instead of crazy.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, thanks, Art. I appreciate the call.
All right, man.
Yeah, you have a good one, and stay safe and stay healthy. I'll tell you what, we got the bottom of the hour break already. Time's going by very quickly. Stay tuned, folks. Govern America continues. Don't go away.
Where the spooks go to find out what's really going on. This is Govern America.
All right, we're back. This is Govern America. GovernAmerica.com is the website for the show again. GovernAmerica.com and TheTechnocraticTyranny.com is Vicky's main website. TheTechnocraticTyranny.com. As we continue on here, I'm very concerned about where we're headed here with regard to the police state tactics that are currently being used. I have one more trip before we get into that, though. I want to get into one more clip from the press conference yesterday. Again, this is Trump. And, everything today is about public-private partnerships.
10 days ago, I brought together the CEOs of commercial labs at the White House and directed them to immediately begin working on a solution to dramatically increase the availability of tests. As a result of that action, today we're announcing a new partnership with private sector to vastly increase and accelerate our capacity to test for the coronavirus. Using federal emergency authorities, the FDA approved a new test for the virus. We did this within hours after receiving the application from Roche, a process that would normally take weeks. We therefore expect up to 500,000 additional tests will be available early next week. We'll be announcing locations probably on Sunday night. I want to thank Roche, great company, for their incredible work. I'd also like to thank Thermo Fisher. The FDA's goal is to hopefully authorize the application within 24 hours. It'll go very quickly. It's going very quickly, which will bring additionally 1.4 million tests on board next week and 5 million within a month. I doubt we'll need anywhere near that. At the same time, we've been in discussions with pharmacies and retailers to make drive-through tests available in the critical locations identified by public health professionals. The goal is for individuals to be able to drive up and be swabbed without having to leave your car. I want to thank Google. Google is helping to develop a website. It's going to be very quickly done, unlike websites of the past, to determine whether a test is warranted and to facilitate testing at a nearby convenient location. We have many, many locations behind us, by the way. We cover this country and large parts of the world, by the way. We're not going to be talking about the world right now, but we cover very, very strongly our country, stores in virtually every location. Google has 1,700 engineers working on this right now. They've made tremendous progress. Our overriding goal is to stop the spread of the virus and to help all Americans who have been impacted by this. Again, we don't want everybody taking this test. It's totally unnecessary.
Okay, yeah. I wish Trump would just stick to the script.
You know what? As I was listening to him, my immediate thought was an article that I wrote where I put a caption on there, "Hi, I'm from Google and I'm here to help." Okay, now why would it be Google? Think about this scenario in terms of the geographic mapping of DNA. They get everybody to go get a swab, a cheek swab, and they have DNA. Now this is supposedly for the coronavirus, but once they get that swab, they can do whatever they want with it. You don't know. Okay, it could be for a DNA test for the geographic information system for DNA. Now, if I'm right, and if this whole system was set up for genetic research, which I believe it was, what you would then have is the DNA of all of your potential test subjects. You could then use that DNA. And we have this star ID, which just recently became a requirement. In order to fly or do anything, you've got to have this star ID. Well, what that is, it is an absolutely unique ID. And when they first started talking about this medical research system that they planned to design, one of the first problems they had to solve was a unique ID. And the problem, of course, with driver's licenses is that it only includes adults and not children. So
that's an interesting thought. I hadn't considered that. And we know that they want people's DNA because all of these websites, there's this, these websites that are set up now for people to research their family heritage, and they collect DNA, and that goes into a database. And we know the federal government has been working with them to, investigate crimes or go after people for various reasons. So, yeah, I mean, that is fascinating. I hadn't even thought about that angle.
Yeah, well, that's the benefit of being a systems designer because and it's the what I've used is my analytical skills for this whole research project that I've been doing. Now, okay, here's another way that they collect DNA when to prison, and I'm not sure if they're doing this to jails at this point, but by court order, they must give a DNA sample, even if their crime has nothing to do with anything biological. That not a rapist or murder, nothing like that. Just, whatever you get sentenced for, that you have to give a DNA sample. So they've been working on this. It's like they've been working population by population to try to get everybody.
Well, they already take your biological information when you're arrested.
Now, in Idaho, there is legislation to have the state maintain the database of medical records on everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Now, initially, when they set that up through Obamacare, and it was they what? Exchanges at the emergency rooms in hospitals, and they were marketing it based on the idea that if you were in a car accident and you came in to the emergency room and you were unconscious, that your medical record would help the emergency room physicians know how to treat you. Problem with that, of course, in terms of logic, is that everybody that's allergic to something like penicillin or some medication, or if they're diabetic, they wear those bracelets, that tell the physician, the emergency physicians and people that, if I pass out, I might be in a diabetic coma, or
Yeah, whatever the case might be.
Yeah, whatever the case might be, whatever the emergency situation is, or I have allergies or whatever. So the logic behind the medical records all being centered in the emergency rooms, it didn't make sense. It didn't logically follow.
Yeah. Well, that's yeah. So, folks, here's the bottom line: is don't get swabbed, don't get tested, because here's the thing, and this is the thing I don't see anybody talking about in the establishment realm of things. You know, they mention washing your hands. Make sure you wash your hands. Don't touch your face. Don't put your fingers in your mouth or eyes. You know, common sense things that should be common sense. But, you know, I'm an incessant hand washer anyway. You know, I'm kind of I don't want to say germaphobe, but I just like having clean hands, you know, and so, you know, I tend to wash my hands quite a bit anyway. But the point is that nobody's talking in the establishment about getting proper rest, what you have to do to build up your immune system. They're not talking about natural health. I haven't heard anybody talk about vitamin C. I haven't heard anybody talk about, you know, the proper nutrients that you should take on a daily basis to keep from getting sick. There's nothing about that I've heard. Now, maybe they're talking about it somewhere, but I certainly haven't heard any of it. It's mostly just, you know, wash your hands and use good hygiene and avoid public places. And this is the thing that's got me bothered, is all of these event cancellations everywhere. It's almost like your right to peacefully assemble is being taken away. It's almost like your right to peacefully assemble is being removed. You know, here in Michigan, they've banned public gatherings of over 250 people. You know, if you were planning on, I don't know how far-reaching this is. I'm assuming it's everything. If you were planning a wedding and you were going to have a large wedding, does that mean it's now illegal for you to have your wedding, or is it just public events? I don't know. I mean, I'm assuming it's everything, and this is a problem. You know. Yeah,
I don't know that they could. I don't know that they would have the authority to cancel a private event.
Well, I would tell them. You know what? I'd tell them. You know, come and get me, arrest me, if you think I'm canceling it.
Yeah.
But you know, thumb your nose at it. You know, what are they going to do? Barge in and arrest you? Maybe. But you know, this is the thing. Where are we headed in America here, and how long are these things going to last? Here we see from the Daily Mail, White House coronavirus expert Dr. Anthony-Fauci says complete U.S. shutdown is on the table and warns that the crisis could last 2 months. There are other things that people are talking about that this I've heard it could even go on 6 months. We hear a lot about social distancing now. This is a term that I've never heard before, not before this crisis began. Social distancing. The CDC held a press conference yesterday, also Friday the 13th, in Maine, and they were sounding a lot like psychologists.
Yesterday, we talked at length with Governor Mills about social distancing and the governor's recommendation that all large, non-essential indoor gatherings of greater than 250 people be suspended. But social distancing does not necessarily occur just in large gatherings. Each of us can practice social distancing at different ways in our lives, and we urge everyone to do so. But we also recognize that other things can result from social distancing, like loneliness. So what I'm urging everyone today to do is to practice social distancing, but not social isolation. Nobody knows how long the COVID-19 situation will carry, but we have to make sure that as it goes on, although we are taking steps to distance ourselves from others who may be ill, we're not isolating ourselves from society.
Yeah, because we don't want people to develop too much individualism now, do we?
Well, that is really an interesting thing. So it seems to me like that the people that will be isolated, socially distanced, are the ones that might have some kind of an condition that people won't want to be around, and so they become de facto isolated. I'm going to have to think about that, because that's it seems to me like that it's a way to keep people from talking. You know, people who might be targets for research from talking to their friends and logic checking what's been said.
Interesting thought.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know.
Yeah, I'm going to have to think about that.
We're in a very dangerous time in America, Vicky.
Oh, man, I know.
We got police state tactics are increasing, and declared pandemics are, as I said earlier, they're a perfect excuse for martial law type and police state type tactics. For example, there's police in Rockland, California, a suburb of Sacramento. They locked down an entire neighborhood under forced quarantine.
Get back inside.
Sheriff deputies and Rockland police, some wearing protective gloves, converged on this residential street in Rockland as a sheriff's helicopter circled overhead, ordering people to get inside. People who live here, unclear why. Officers eventually let them out of their homes.
We as neighbors, we don't know anything. We're kind of in the dark. But we know something's going on.
The Placer County Health Department issued a brief statement shortly after the police presence, reading, "Law enforcement partners are currently responding to enforce a health officer's order. We cannot share any additional information to protect patient confidentiality." The orders were given under sections of California health and safety codes that allows Placer Health to enforce regulations requiring strict isolation or quarantine if the action is necessary for the protection of the public health. CBS 13 has learned the first California coronavirus patient to die from the illness lived on this block. The timing of the health officer order comes a day after Placer County Public Health announced the death of the 71-year-old man.
I understand the sensitivity of the situation, but of course, more information is always better.
I'm not sure what the next step is. I'm not sure what they're going to do.
As a Rockland family mourns their loved one's death, law enforcement showing this presence on their block in an effort to contain a contagious disease.
Here we see
a
from
71-year-old guy, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's insane. You're going to quarantine a whole neighborhood because somebody was sick in the neighborhood. I mean, this is just this. But see, folks, this is the thing. It's like Garland Nixon said when we played the clip last week. When people are afraid, when people are confronted with the unknown, they're sheep, and that's the problem. But these events being canceled. We just had the Council on Foreign Relations canceled. They were going to meet to discuss the coronavirus. Ironically, they canceled it because of the coronavirus. We have here from, let's see, this is from Newsweek. Governor Cuomo in New York announces New York containment area for coronavirus, closes schools, brings in the National Guard. They say to prevent the spread of new coronavirus, New York Governor Andrew Cuomo announced places within a containment area where large groups of people gather, including schools, would close for 2 weeks, and the National Guard would be brought in to assist. New York has 173 cases of a new coronavirus that causes COVID-19 and is one of the 3 states in the United States experiencing a large outbreak. That was from... I don't see the date on it right now, but anyway, that's that. We see also from Market Watch, as coronavirus spreads, CDC warns Americans about traveling within the U.S. Now we are seeing, they've been warning about traveling outside the U.S., but now this latest thing is they're warning about traveling within the U.S. So my question is the country being locked down? Are they going to, they're warning about it right now. What they're saying here is with the number of confirmed cases, as it continues to grow, public health officials issued a warning to people thinking about traveling within the United States. The CDC posted a new guide Wednesday, and answering common questions about the risks it poses to Americans traveling domestically. Now, skipping to the CDC website, they say, should I travel within the United States? CDC does not generally issue advisories or restrictions for travel within the United States. However, cases of COVID-19 have been reported in many states, and some areas are experiencing community spread of the disease. Crowded travel settings like airports may increase your risk of exposure. If there are other travelers with COVID-19, there are several things you should consider when deciding whether it is safe for you to travel. So my question is these are suggestions now. Will they be more than suggestions in the future? You know, with states of emergency, things can be locked down pretty quick. And in fact, they're not trying, by they, I mean the administration, is not saying, you know, basically this Fauci guy, Anthony-Fauci, the guy that Trump is advising Trump on all of this, he's not disputing this. He's made a couple of appearances on Fox News. Let me just jump to that.
He's been involved in this from the beginning.
Yes.
From the beginning of the Human Genome Project.
And this is one of those things that they're talking about, you know, this guy's highly respected. I haven't heard any of the media attack this guy at all, which is very unusual for anybody being brought into the Trump administration. Normally they're attacked relentlessly. This guy, nobody's touching. Nobody's saying anything about him, which is fascinating to me in and of itself. But anyway, this is some of what Fauci said on one of the Fox News appearances.
Italy just announced that it is going to lock down an entire region of northern Italy that includes Milan and Venice with a quarter of the population, millions of people. Nobody's going to be allowed, except under extraordinary circumstances, to go in or to go out.
Right.
Could that happen here?
You know, we have to be realistic. I don't think it would be as draconian as nobody in and nobody out, but there'll be, if we continue to get cases like this, particularly at the community level, there will be what we call mitigation, where you'll have to do essentially social distancing, keep people out of crowded places, take a look at seriousness. Do you really need to travel? Those kinds of things. And I think it's particularly important among the most vulnerable. And that's the thing that the CDC and the State Department are going to be making some recommendations about how people who have underlying conditions, those are the most vulnerable ones, particularly elderly with underlying conditions, heart disease, chronic lung disease, diabetes, to do right now, not wait, but right now, to sort of take a look at things that are at high risk, crowded places, getting on airplanes, and absolutely don't get on a cruise ship.
So I want to press this question, though, of Italy.
Right.
Could you see a situation, you know, you had a lot of talk about Seattle and what's going on there, where a city is shut down or a state or a region is shut down, and you basically just say, and in the case of Italy, it's till April 3rd, nobody in, nobody out?
It's possible. I think what you need to do on real-time basis, and that's the reason why we evaluate it literally every single day. You know, you don't want to alarm people, but given the spread we see, you know, anything is possible. And that's the reason why we've got to be prepared to take whatever action is appropriate to contain and mitigate the outbreak.
I'm telling you, it's 9/11 all over again.
Yeah,
only it's not terrorism this time. It's coronavirus. It's COVID-19. Mm-hmm. The fear factor is being drummed up. And I see we have a call on the line. Just hang with me just a moment, caller. Over 2,700 New York City residents quarantined in homes over coronavirus fears. This is from the New York Post on March 5th. So if it's 2,700 on March 5th, how many is it now? Because that was half a month ago, almost. 2,700 people. They say about 2,800 New York City residents are under quarantine to prevent the spread of the coronavirus, and some could face fines or jail time if they venture outside their homes, officials said Thursday. The powers that we have could involve the police, City Health Commissioner Dr. Oxyris Barbot warned during a news conference at One Police Plaza. The city's Department of Health was monitoring 2,773 people in home isolation as of Thursday morning. Again, this is March 5th, according to an afternoon update from Mayor Bill de Blasio. So, police state tactics, folks. Here we see from the Wall Street Journal. Amid coronavirus, U.S. cities stretch to monitor self-quarantined Americans. Local efforts to prevent potential spread of COVID-19 have been like one big long day. They say public health officials in the U.S. are striving to keep tabs on thousands of Americans who have quarantined themselves at home.
I know what that is. That's testing the disease surveillance system. You know, after 9/11, there was the anthrax attack. And when I was researching that, I found two disease surveillance systems that were ready to roll out. One of them was the CDC disease surveillance system, and then there was another one in Connecticut, I think, that was kind of like an emergency one because a couple of the people who got the anthrax envelopes were from Connecticut. And the interesting thing about the anthrax attacks was that it looked to me like it was the distribution of people that got those letters were kind of like a system test. There was an old lady somewhere and a baby somewhere and a couple of news people and then a few members of Congress. It was a very interesting population that got those letters. But anyway, that was one of the second order effects, or of the anthrax attacks, was development of a disease surveillance system, which of course would be connected with the GIS mapping system.
Yeah.
Google Earth.
Yeah.
It all fits. I mean, it's just right there. It's right there in front of your face. It all fits.
The tyranny is right there in front of your face, for sure.
Yeah.
They're saying in this Wall Street Journal article, more than 5,400 people have been asked to self-quarantine in California alone as of February 14th. According to the California Department of Public Health, hundreds more are self-quarantining in Georgia, Washington State, Illinois, New York, and other states. So they're tracking people. And what do we have to look forward to, listeners? What does this say about the future as this thing progresses? We got to take the top of the hour break. Caller, stay with me. I'll take you into the next hour. So we'll be back, folks.
Before us the opportunity to forge for ourselves and for future generations a new world order.
New world order.
New world order.
This is a moment to seize. The kaleidoscope has been shaken. The pieces are in flux. Soon they will settle again. Before they do, let us reorder this world around us.
A new world order.
A world where the United Nations is poised to fulfill the historic vision of its founders.
Nevertheless, the United States is in a key position to shape this so that the problem of the Bush presidency will be the emergence of a new international order.
The first decade of the 21st century, that out of what will be seen as the greatest restructuring of the global economy, a new world order was created.
Documenting the crisis of our republic.
The very word secrecy is repugnant in a free and open society. And we are, as a people, inherently and historically opposed to secret societies, to secret oaths, and to secret proceedings.
Waging war on the New World Order.
The councils of government, we must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex.
This is Govern America with Darren Weeks and Vicky Davis.
Live from FEMA Regions 5 and 10, this is Govern America. I'm Darren Weeks. Vicky Davis is here as well. It continues to be the 14th of March, 2020, as we are in the dawn of what the new world order would, basically their dream locking the country down. That's what it appears like to me. I don't want to overstate it, but...
they're the same people that were in Nazi Germany. Same people.
Yeah, you want to think that this thing is going to end at some point, but I'm not so sure. I think some of these things are going to be lasting for sure because they're not... I mean, look, folks, again, if you stay healthy, and, the flu has killed more people than this, and we went over the statistics over and over again. I'm not going to do it this time. We got some calls on the line. Hang with us, callers. Real quickly, I want to play one more clip here from Dr. Fauci. So just hang with us, callers, for just a moment. By the way, the number is 610-600-1776. That's 610-600-1776. Or toll-free, 844-646-8376, 844-6-GOVERN. Again, this is Dr. Anthony Fauci on Fox and Friends talking about locking the nation down, locking the country down. It may be necessary.
In the meantime, as you know, here in New York City, the mayor declared a state of emergency, as has been declared in numerous states, and schools are they're suspending activity, and kids are going to work on their computers. There has been a general panic, Dr. Fauci, in the country over the last couple of weeks. You go to the grocery store, everything's picked off the shelves. The level of panic or anxiety, is it proportional to what is actually going on?
Well, whenever you have the unknown, the level of anxiety is always out of proportion to what usually turns out to be the reality. But you have to understand why people are concerned. And that's the reason why I welcome the opportunity to be talking to you about that, to tell people, although things are going to get worse before they get better, we will handle it if we pull together as a nation and do the kinds of things that would blunt that effect. It is unfortunate that we're in this. This is some of the things that we've been talking about for years. It's predictable. You will have outbreaks. Some of them are inconsequential, and some of them are really consequential. We're dealing with one right now that's consequential. We've got to deal with it. You deal with it by action, not by fear.
Dr. Fauci, will there be cities on lockdown in the United States?
I don't know. I mean, as I always say, you've got to keep everything on the table. You would hope that you wouldn't have to resort to these draconian moves of actually locking down a city. But it depends on what happens. I hope we never get to that. But you never take anything off the table when you're dealing with protecting the health of the American public.
So there you go. Whole city lockdowns are on the table, ladies and gentlemen. You just heard the man say it.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's go to the phones. Let's go down to Florida. And hello, Harvey, you're on the air.
Well,
Hello.
Yes, hello, Darren. How are you?
Yeah, I'm hanging in there. I'm healthy at the moment.
And how about Vicky? How's my friend Vicky doing?
I'm doing just fine, thanks. Healthy as I can be for as healthy as I am.
How's everything going down there?
Well, here in, let's see where I'm near the Daytona area, so we got motorcycle mania going on for the last week or so.
Yeah.
Motorcycles are roaring and total bedlam going on, but where I am, I'm just off the beaten track, so it's not so bad.
So are they having some kind of convention down there? I didn't think they were allowed to have that anymore.
This is Bike Week. That stops Bike Week. There's 200,000 motorcycles here, probably.
Yeah, they're rugged individualists. These bikers, they're not easily pushed around. Let's put it that way.
Right. The mayor tried to say something. The mayor of Daytona tried to say something last night about, well, maybe they can't have their big bike show tomorrow. But I don't know. During the day, I avoid it. I only go out early in the morning when they're all hungover. So, no problem.
Good idea. Yeah, here in Michigan, we have we had a helmet law requiring motorcyclists, to wear helmets, and the bikers got together. That's one thing they did. They got together and went to Lansing and got that law undone, to where now they can ride around without helmets. And I think you're crazy if you ride without a helmet, but I also think it should be your right. If you choose to do it, you should be able to do it. And so we have the mandatory seatbelt law still in effect, but people can ride a motorcycle without a helmet. Go figure. Anyways, that's
right. I never used to wear my seatbelt, and I just happened to wear it about 5 years ago on my way on a pretty long trip, and it's saved my life, actually. So now I'm a big devotee of seatbelts, because without that seatbelt on, I probably would have been killed. So
yeah, it might be a good idea to wear it, but at the same time, I still think it should be a choice. Well, that's just me.
It should be a choice.
Yeah.
I just was stubborn from the old days. I'm getting so old that I don't think there was seatbelts when I was first driving. Let me put it that way. So I wasn't used to it. But, Vicky brought up something interesting about the anthrax attacks. I remember them distinctly. And if you remember correctly, one of the anthrax letters was sent to the head of the editor of the Inquirer in Boca Raton, Florida.
Yes, I do remember that. Mm-hmm. And the guy who supposedly determined that it was anthrax had just gone to work for the Florida Department of Health the day before the anthrax attack that killed that guy who worked for the Inquirer. So I think that was a targeted killing, actually. And that guy, his name is John Aguinobi, supposedly an MD. He was selected by George Walker Bush to be the first director for pandemic planning.
Wow!
So it worked out very, very conveniently there.
Yeah, interesting.
And he was originally from Nigeria, and he migrated to Scotland, and then he immigrated to the U.S. from Scotland, and he got his, supposedly he was a doctor when he came, but he got his Master's of Public Health from Johns Hopkins. So we've got
we've got a pattern here, don't we?
Yeah.
John Hopkins keeps coming up. And again, we have the map, the COVID-19/coronavirus interactive map on the website at governamerica.com. Under the reference section at the center of the page, there is that interactive map. That is being tracked by John Hopkins. That is their map.
Okay, now I'll tell you something else about Johns Hopkins. When I first started researching the education system, the scans system, which ultimately is leading to the merger of the education system and what will be a labor management system of vocational training and so forth. These systems are big, they're huge, it's just kind of unbelievable. But Johns Hopkins was the first to define the career paths by industry sector. I talk for a minute while I find it so I can give you the right terms so you can look for it.
Well, I don't know what do you think? How have you been to the store lately, Harvey? I'm just kind of wondering what the conditions are down there.
But so far everything's pretty much normal, except that they're out of toilet paper, which is
yeah, that's the most baffling thing.
That is the only real panic there is being out of toilet paper.
No, the food is coming off the shelf.
In the 1960s, Johnny Carson, I'm sure it was a systems test, he made a joke about a shortage in toilet paper, and he created a panic.
Wow. I didn't know that. That's interesting. I know.
Near the Ocala National Forest, I could always go and use leaves in the forest, so that's not really that.
Well, there's any number of things you can do, and the thing is, though, is that here in Michigan now, it's branched out. It's no longer toilet paper only. First, it was toilet paper and water. Then it started being spaghetti noodles and spaghetti sauce, and it's kind of branched out from there. I went to the store yesterday, and all the bread has been bought up. You can't hardly get a loaf of bread now. There's other staples. The meat, a lot of the meat is missing. The meat is gone. There's still some that you could get as of yesterday, but it's very, very scarce. There are a lot of bare shelves on here in Michigan. I can't speak to the rest of the nation, but I can tell you that's what's going on here. We have
this is really an economic stimulus, isn't it?
Well, it would be if it weren't for the fact that, a lot of this stuff, eventually the stores are going to replace the toilet paper and the water. In fact, they were actually restocking the water yesterday, the bottled water. I don't know why. That's another thing that baffles me, because are people thinking that the tap water is going to quit running in their house?
Or no, they have a full tank of their hot water heater. So
it doesn't make any sense, some of these things that people are running on. And I'm waiting for them to start running on the gasoline. That's the thing that's interesting to me is that they haven't yet figured out, that gas stations have limited supplies too. And if there's a disruption,
start something, Darren.
Yeah, well, I don't think just little old me is going to. I'm not trying to give anybody any ideas. And as long as the deliveries continue to flow, then the gasoline will continue to flow. But, as we've talked about the supply chains, if you get any disruption of the supply chains, but see, this is the point, folks. What we're facing now is really no different than what you'd be facing at any given time. This just-in-time delivery system with the stores, that's the vulnerability, and it gets more vulnerable the more you're far away that you're shipping products from. And so this is the big weakness of globalization, and this is what everybody really should be stressing, except that in the major press, that's not going to happen because they're all in. But
well, that's what prompted my call, was the history of globalization. But before I get to that, I'd really like to say about the anthrax attack and the building that was contaminated in Boca Raton. Well, you know who ended up buying that? Who ended up buying that was Rudolph Giuliani. He started a consulting company after he saved New York on 9/11/2001. The great hero, coward, that's not in Building 7 where his command center is, where he abandoned that. Somehow he ended up buying the building in Boca Raton for 10 cents on the dollar.
Wow.
It was now in the domination business.
Mm.
And Vicky, you may remember that, but you check that out. It's absolutely true. It's one of his many scams. And now, of course, he's chief assistant scammer for the Donald Trump. This thing stinks to high hell.
Yep.
Yeah, I didn't know about the building in Boca Raton. IBM is also in Boca Raton, by the way. That's just FYI.
No doubt.
But Rudy Giuliani, hired as a consultant for the Spanish firm called Sintra that wanted to take over the Trans-Texas corridor to make it a tollway system. So, yeah, Rudy Giuliani has really been kind of curiously positioned in these various areas.
Yeah, he shows up. He shows up at every horrendous anti-American operation. He shows up. So that guy, just the sound of him, the sight of him, just makes me so angry, just so angry and sick that this guy now he's linked with the president. He's running all over the world defending the president, and on Fox News every day. This guy should have been locked up for covering up 9/11 because he was the one who made sure the evidence from the scene of the crime disappeared pronto.
Yep.
Yeah, you know what? And I have a recording of him, and I labeled it Rudy, Rudy, Rudy. How did you know? Because he was, moving around in Lower Manhattan while 9/11 was happening, and they just happened to leave a building that I think it got crushed or something. But anyway, it's a very revealing recording of Rudy Giuliani indicating prior knowledge.
Yeah, go ahead, Harvey.
Right. The command center was in the top of World Trade Center building number 7.
Yep.
And that was the building that dropped to the ground in an instant. And he wasn't in the building. He was nowhere near the building because he was definitely in on it.
And no planes ever hit the building. We have a whole generation of people that weren't alive back then yet. That happened so long ago, and it seems like just yesterday for those of us that went through it. But nobody talks about Building 7 because it's a very damning piece of evidence. Why did they pull Building 7?
Right, and their reason for
didn't they ever interrogate the guy who owned those buildings and bring him to Guantanamo, and Rudolph Giuliani to Guantanamo, and George Bush to Guantanamo, and Rumsfeld to Guantanamo, and actually question them instead of remember when Dick Cheney and George Bush testified in the 9/11 Commission, they went together holding hands in a secret testimony. Remember that?
Yes, I do. Yes. Uh-huh.
So you couldn't make this up. But as far as the globalism aspect of all this, if you remember correctly, it was Richard Nixon opened the door to China with Henry Kissinger. And who was their first ambassador to China at that time was George Herbert Walker Bush.
That's right.
That's right. Yeah, I have that documented in my New World Order section. I forget what I called it, but I have buttons on the left-hand side of my website. It all comes together right about that time when Nixon opened up China. And, of course, he got impeached before he could start working with Russia. I mean, they did negotiate some weapons agreements, but then Nixon got impeached, and Gerald Ford, who had been in the House of Representatives, and he was a Bilderberger, when he became president, he's the one that signed the Helsinki Final Act, which has provided cooperation with the Russians, the Soviets, for all of these years. So they lied to us probably from the beginning about our relationship with the Soviet Union.
Yep, no question about it. Harvey, did you have anything else?
No, I'll let another caller get in, but when you trace back to globalism, that's what led to the spread of this virus, because all our jobs and all the contacts back and forth, the millions of people that run back and forth to China, is what's brought this lovely disease to America, and right to this day.
Yep.
Today, what we're seeing is the result of the three, and don't forget, Henry Kissinger is still alive. He's still calling the shots. When Donald Trump first got in office, one of his first meetings was with Kissinger, and he's been there many times.
You're absolutely right.
Running the game. And he's still walking around free, even though he's wanted by the International Criminal Court, and many countries want him for mass murder. Thank you for your time, and thank you for being there, Darren.
Hey, appreciate you, man.
Beautiful day.
God bless you, sir.
Okay, we'll talk again soon. Bye.
All right, very good. All right, there's Harvey in Florida. Thanks for the call. And we have a couple more calls on the line. I wanted to get to real quick here, so just hang with us just a moment, callers. China's now blaming the United States for this Wuhan virus. And the media is very quick, including Fox News, even Tucker Carlson, whom I respect. He's probably about the only one over there at Fox that I respect. But even he spent some time trying to debunk the Chinese accusation that the United States was involved in bringing this to China. And, he may mean well, and I've given the benefit of a doubt. And it could be hockey puck, except that I do think they have somewhat of a compelling case. It's interesting that there's something called the 2019 Military World Games, Vicky. I don't know if you knew about this. I certainly didn't. But there's think of the Olympics only for the military.
Uh-huh. They've been moving along globalization with global challenges.
Yeah.
It's almost like a competition between countries, who can sell out your country fastest and best.
So they have this thing called the 2019 Military World Games, officially known as the 7th CISM Military World Games, was held from October 18th to the 27th of last year. This is 2019. So it was held from October 18th to October 27th in the capital of, guess where? The Hubei province in Wuhan, China.
Oh, I'll be darned. Isn't that what a coincidence?
Yep. The 7th Military World Games was the first international military multi-sport event to be held in China, and also it was the largest military sports event ever to be held in China, with nearly 10,000 athletes from over 100 countries competing in 27 sports. The multi-sport event included 25 official and 2 demonstrative sports. 6 sport disciplines such as badminton, tennis, table tennis, women's boxing, and men's gymnastics made their debuts in the event. This was also the second biggest international sport event to be held in the year 2019 in China after hosting the 2019 FIBA Basketball World Cup. The games were organized by the Military Sports Commission of China, Ministry of National Defense of the People's Republic of China, and the military commands, Army in accordance with... Anyway, the point is, there were 550...
Gladiators. That's what they are. They're gladiators.
553 participants for the games. Around 230,000 volunteers recruited for the event to be staged in China. The point is that, and skipping down here, and I'm reading from the Wikipedia page. Apparently, there's even a Wikipedia page for this event. Again, the 2019 Military World Games, listeners. The controversies. They have the word controversies. The second paragraph down, after the 2019 to 2020 coronavirus outbreak, conspiracy theories about COVID-19 being the CIA's creation to keep China down were all over the Chinese internet, according to The Economist. Some articles on popular sites in Chinese have accused American athletes participating in the Wuhan Military World Games to have deployed the virus. They claim the inattentive attitude and disproportionately below-average results of American athletes in the game indicate they might have been in for other purposes, and that they might actually be biowarfare operatives, and that their place of residence during their stay in Wuhan was also close to the Hunan seafood wholesale market, where the first known cluster of cases occurred.
Well, isn't that interesting?
So the Chinese are very much, pointing the finger in the United States. This is a thing from Fox News.
China is working behind the scenes to downplay the coronavirus outbreak, even going so far to falsely accuse the United States for starting it. This tweet from a Chinese government spokesperson claiming that the U.S. Army brought the virus to Wuhan. Amid a global pandemic, why the blame game? Senior research fellow with the Heritage Foundation's Asian Studies Center, Dean Chang, is here.
Well, I think the Chinese are working very hard for 2 reasons. One is to basically make sure that China isn't blamed for this global pandemic, to present itself as a responsible player. And this also has a domestic component, right? If the Chinese government says it was the Americans that started it, this is a message that will go over the Chinese government hopes well at home to basically say, look, if there were any problems, it wasn't our fault. It was the Americans who spread the disease to us.
The South China Morning Post, Dean, is reporting that the first case happened in Wuhan, patient 0, back in November 17th of 2019. So I don't know how China's going to prove that. Again, many people scratching their heads and asking why it matters. However, with the pandemic now reaching our shores here in the U.S., do you think Beijing is emboldened?
I think that the Chinese are driven by a couple of things. One is that they clearly are able to influence a number of international organizations. Notice how long it took the World Health Organization, for example, to finally declare a pandemic. Second of all is that they do have significant portions of the American pharmaceutical supply chain, and I suspect that this is also an implicit threat against the United States to say, look, if you tick us off enough, we have the ability to turn off things like ibuprofen and precursor chemicals for penicillin.
95% of ibuprofen is supplied from China. That's an excellent point. Do you think they could limit their exports of what we need right now in terms of masks and disinfectants?
To be fair to the Chinese, they have, at this point, probably the largest number of cases, so I'm not sure that we're seeing evidence of them deliberately slowing down exports. But certainly I think the Chinese are going to prioritize meeting their own demands before they allow significant exports around the world.
Okay, I understand we have callers on the line. Stay with us. We'll get to you after the break. So there you go, ladies and gentlemen. I guess the Chinese communists are now a bunch of conspiracy theorists, like the rest of us. We'll be back.
Where the spooks go to find out what's really going on. This is Govern America.
All right, we're in the home stretch of the broadcast, final half hour here. GovernAmerica.com is the website. 844-646-8376 is the number to call, or 610-600-1776, and we have the phone line stacked right now. So let's go ahead and take some calls. Let's go back to Texas, and I think it's Jerry on the line. So we have a few calls. So everybody, if you could be brief, that would be great. Go ahead, please.
Real quickly, did you see where that AR-15 manufacturer awarded that auto worker a AR-14 with Joe Biden on it with the 100-round clip magazine yesterday? Look it up online. It's hilarious. But anyway, I had a question earlier. What happened to this hog swine crisis, infection that happened in Canada or China, where they were killing off all the hogs because of this illness? You remember that here a couple of weeks?
Well, I know there's been a number of things. A friend of mine, Ron in Missouri, he sent me in 2000. They were saying Y2K. It was 1999 actually, and before Y2K was going to destroy everything. 2001 it was going to be anthrax. We just talked about the anthrax thing. 2002 it was West Nile virus was going to kill us all. 2003 SARS was going to kill us all. 2005 bird flu was going to kill us all. 2006 it was E. coli that was going to kill us all. 2008 financial collapse was going to kill us all. 2009 swine flu was going to kill us all. 2012 the Mayan calendar was going to end the world. 2013, North Korea was going to kill us all. 2014, Ebola was going to kill us all. 2015, or thereabouts, ISIS was going to kill us all. The Zika virus was going to kill us all in 2016, and now we got the 2020 coronavirus that's going to kill us all. So, hey, I guess we're going to die.
Swine. This was that hog swine. They were killing off all the hogs here. In the last 6 months or so, matter of fact, Australia had a security force like TSA in their ports of entry in the ship or ocean seaports, where they were screening they were Chinese smuggling in pork. Butchered pork, and all of a sudden they don't hear about that anymore. We got this coronavirus, but I just wonder if that has something to do with it. I don't know. But anyway, I just want to throw that out. Vicky, are you familiar with that?
No, I hadn't heard that, but that's really very interesting. That it would be pork. I know there was an outbreak here in Idaho, the area where I am, of CJ.
Are you there?
For the name, it's Crookston-Jacobson disease, which is a variation of mad cow. And there were like 5 or 6 cases, and they supposedly could never make connections to these 5 people, the relationships between these 5 people. But at the time I was living over in Idaho Falls, I called over here. There was a meat company here, and I called over here, and I gave them a heads up on the global system. And she said, well, the beef, because mad cow, a few cases came from beef imported through Canada. And so I gave her a heads up on it, and she said, well, thanks, but we only deal with pork. So that's really quite interesting that that they would be smuggling in pork, because they own Smithfield, and they bought Smithfield so that they could export pork.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know, but get a chance to look, check that hog crisis disease that was been rampant in China, and I just wondered if this Wuhan, us ham buddies call it the Kung flu, but anyway, and of course that's not politically correct according to AOC, but anyway, but anyway, it's kind of curious. That was a real crisis up to around the first year, I guess. They started dying off. Now we've got this COVID-19. But anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll look for it. Thanks. Thanks for the heads up.
Yeah, appreciate that.
Y'all have a good weekend. Thank you, Darren.
Yeah. Hey, God bless you.
Out of here.
Yep, we'll talk to you later. There he goes. That's Jerry. We had one caller drop, so if the caller from Colorado wanted to call back, you're welcome to do so, and we'll take you. Still have time. Let's go back to Tennessee. John, go ahead.
Okay. All right, Vicky. Go to centerforhealthsecurity.org. Go to the About page. In the first paragraph, there's a hyperlink. Click on Players. And it'll tell the players in this event to one exercise. You go down, 8, 10, 11 photos, and you come to this woman. She's got a very unfortunate name. Her name is Hashti Paggy. Really? And she's involved in media. A major media company. And if it's a real name, why would her mother or father do that to her? Hashti Paggy. So
yeah, I think a lot of these names that people have that correspond to their function, I think they are constructed people for a purpose, because some of them are almost like a joke. It's like a Machiavellian joke.
We've got a weather girl here in Nashville. Her name is Danielle Breezy. Okay. Now you can understand that, like Sonny Elliott.
A lot of the people that are on broadcasting, either radio or television, they use pseudonyms.
Yeah, or people that want to hide their real identity because of what they're involved in.
Right.
So, Vicky, centerforstrategichealth.org. Yeah.
Yeah, I brought it up. It's at Johns Hopkins, by the way. So. There you go. Yeah, I'll spend time on this website for sure.
All right. I just I'll make room if you got other callers. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, John. Appreciate it.
You can put me on hold. That'd be great.
Oh, okay. We'll do that. So there he is, John in Tennessee. All right. We still have time if anybody else wants to get in. Now, one thing I did want to point out, we have the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. They have the Community Mitigation Guidelines to Prevent Pandemic Influenza, United States 2017. This is the playbook that they're operating from. So I will put that in the show notes. There's also a website called thecommunityguide.org, Vicky. Thecommunityguide.org. And that is spawned off of this Community Mitigation Guidelines to Prevent Pandemic Influenza. So this is something that they are in the process of rolling out. And the communityguide.org is a website. They say the guide to prevent, or the guide to community preventative services. The Community Guide is a collection of evidence-based findings of the Community Preventive Services Task Force. It is a resource to help you select interventions to improve health and prevent disease in your state, community organization, business, healthcare organization, or school. They say they're using a science-based approach to determine whether an intervention approach works and is cost-effective, helps you identify, select intervention approaches for behavior change, disease prevention, and environmental change across the more than 22 health topics, identifies where there is insufficient evidence and more research is needed, and complements decision support tools such as Healthy People 2020 and the Guide to Clinical Preventive Services. Now, one thing I was reading out of this community plan, this mitigation guidelines, they evidently had done a survey of a number of different people to determine what they would be willing to do in the event of a crisis like this pandemic flu thing or whatever it is. And a number of different people said they would be willing to self-quarantine and be willing to miss work and blah, blah, blah. You know, so they had planned for this ahead of time, and you might say, well, this is normal for them to plan for emergencies. But a lot of what's going on right now is based upon this survey that they did. And so all of this stuff will be in the show notes for people who want to research it further. But anyway.
I've lived on this planet for, nearly 70 years. Have you ever seen anything like this?
No.
It's like they're preparing for a world war of disease. There's something just terribly, terribly wrong.
Yes, there is a common... This is what they're doing to galvanize the public. This is what they're doing to pull people together and unite them, because it's always a common enemy that unites people. But the galvanization process is around their world order and their technocratic agenda. And that's
the Human Genome Project was global.
Mm-hmm.
They had to, and they were giving access to researchers from all around the world, but they had to shut it down because somebody thought, it occurred to somebody that information might be used for terrorism. Oh, gee, who would have thought that, right?
Yeah, what a surprise.
So,
I'll tell you what, let's bring our caller from Colorado is Melody. In Colorado's on the line. Hello, Melody. You're on the air.
Hi, Darren.
Hi.
And Vicky. Yeah.
Hi.
The one thing that I've listened to a lot of radio lately, and the one thing that's still not being in the forefront is this is their economic takedown. And if you watch that trail of the Troika on YouTube to see how the criminal globalists took down and has held Greece and Cyprus into, bringing them down to where they can't function as a country, and it's your bankers, and while we got us distracted over here with the flu, which is part of their agenda, the thing is your 9/11 and Iraq and Benghazi were all gold heists as far as I'm concerned. So these guys are after the money and the control. And yes, the flu thing might fit another agenda, but it's just not really being talked about enough because they're using the same methods that we've used all over the world to go in, like John Perkins wrote in his Secrets of an Economic Hitman.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you remember or not, Mel, but during the 1990s, there was a lot of talk about the new businesses where the money was going to be made in the future was genomic medicine. So the bankers would be totally behind that. And in my research, what my conclusion has been is that they've designed our healthcare system for genetic research.
Oh, that I'm doesn't surprise me at all. But I when I was working in a nursing home back in the 93 to 95, and they were talking about the system where they do the telemed thing and being able to do everything online at that time. It just it took much longer for them to implement. But then when I was in financial services, back in the early 90s, they were pushing the Vision 2020. I mean, everything was geared towards 2020, and the timing is here as far as I can see.
Yeah, this is supposed to be implemented by now.
Yeah, all of these systems tie together, and it would only be IBM who could pull this all together. Just because of the nature of the systems, the design, the integration of the systems, it's absolutely massive, but it is like a total control grid. And it's global. And, if you have IBM partnered with the pharmaceutical companies for the healthcare part of it, I mean, that's...
Well, we see from Reuters, White House told Federal Health Agency to classify coronavirus deliberations, according to sources. Now, why would they need to classify anything? The White House has ordered federal health officials to treat top-level coronavirus meetings as classified, an unusual step that has restricted information and hampered the U.S. government's response to the contagion, according to 4 Trump administration officials. The officials said that dozens of classified discussions about such topics as the scope of infections, quarantines, and travel restrictions have been held since mid-January in a high-security meeting room at the Department of Health and Human Services, a key player in the fight against the coronavirus. Staffers without security clearances. What's that?
I mean, it sounds like it's a military exercise.
Exactly.
And yeah, and so we have. I mean, you had when you were talking about the back in the 90s, that was a race to consolidate or all the businesses, and everybody was going to race to be billionaires. And when they became billionaires, then they were able to be at the table when they started passing around the different types of way they had recategorized the world resources, and those people will be at the table, and it won't be a free market system, but one where they get the...
No. This is not free market. It is not free market. Unless you define free market as controlled by the market, which is a centralized computer system that allocates resources behind the scenes.
Hold on, you both are talking at the same...
that's exactly what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Okay, but when you say market, free market, people get a different idea.
Well, she said it's not a free market.
But I was saying free market is what people were led to believe we had. It's never really been free, as far as I'm concerned. They allowed certain businesses to exist.
Well, certainly not in our lifetime.
Yeah. I mean, we're good little slaves, and
unfortunately.
Right, and the new system is owners and slaves. There's only 2 classes of people, owners and slaves.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So between the they get to play with all these different ways of dealing with the public as far as diseases and the sort. That, they're not going to give us the information unless they've already put it out in the public before, and it depends upon whether it suits them to keep it there or not. So, but I heard somebody this morning talking about mycoplasms being a factor, and I haven't really heard that discussed so much. And if they did weaponize it, and the virus or whatever's involved, it might be a direction to start, looking at. It is because we may, it may be a little more complicated than we think as far as just being a virus. I don't know.
Interesting.
I've been trying to find out how to get a hold of Tom in Utah because he has a background in pathology, and he doesn't seem to have the ties that would keep him from talking. And I know he calls into different programs a lot, and but I have never. I used to do some interviews with him, but it's been many years.
Lost contact with him, huh?
Yeah. So
interesting. Yeah, this
get going, but I it's nice talking to you guys.
Hey, always.
Yeah. It's been a long time since I've heard the term mycoplasm. I'm going to have to look that up. I know it's really important. That's like within a cell, right? Is that an outside agent invading the cell?
Yeah, and it was Lauren who came on Darren Shoof's program this morning, and I'd heard her before, but she talked so fast I couldn't catch it all. I have to go back and review the program to pick up some of it because she doesn't use the internet. So, anyways, but nice talking to you guys, and keep up the good work.
Hey, appreciate it, Melody.
Thank you, Melody.
Thanks for broadening the discussion. Yeah, blessings to you. There she is, Melody in Colorado. And, in fact, I think you're right, Vicky. Mycoplasm is a genus of bacteria that lack a cell wall around their cell membranes. This characteristic makes them naturally resistant to antibiotics that target cell wall synthesis, like the beta-lactam antibiotics. So,
yeah, kind of like a ghost that can walk through walls or something, right?
Yeah. Only in this case, they say there is no walls, basically.
Yeah, that's really. I've got to go look at that. That's really interesting because I know that I think it was when I was looking at when the whole West Nile virus thing first came up. That's when, or maybe it was even earlier than that. I think that's when the discussion about mycoplasms first came up. But man, that's like a blast from the past memory.
Yeah, it's interesting that it's terrifying, really, to think about it being weaponized.
Mm-hmm.
But there's so many different scary scenarios that you could come up with, in this day and age. And Melody brought up the crashing of the economy, and the crashing of the monetary system is certainly something that everybody should be concerned about. It's
and then what? We'll go to Bitcoin, huh?
Well, or some kind of system. I don't think it'll be Bitcoin exactly. But the Federal Reserve has already expressed an interest in creating their own cryptocurrency type of system. So I wouldn't be surprised. See, the weakness of that system is that, in my view anyway, as I understand it, it's a decentralized system where everybody has to have a record of every transaction that's ever been done since the beginning of the inception of the Bitcoin, which means that you have to download this massive file containing all the information. And so as time goes on, this gets bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, maintaining this.
Well, there'll be an intermediary, and it might be that they plan to use the phone system. Those they have those apps now that where you can just point your phone at something and you bought it.
Well, my point is, even if they have to maintain a record, the Federal Reserve has, in the government in general, since they have the ability to create money from nothing, they have the ability now to store all of that data. I mean, where hard drive space used to be an issue, it isn't anymore. They'll just keep scaling the existing data centers to make them longer and bigger, and they'll keep storing all the transactions if they have to.
Yeah. No,
so
I don't
they have
think
the ability to do it.
I think the Bitcoin model, which I use Bitcoin as a generic name, but I think that model will be for private transactions. I think your bank account will be at your local bank, but how you spend money out of that account is really the issue. And I think probably the cell phones is going to be the way.
Yeah, in the waning moments of the broadcast, I just wanted to share, I wanted to thank Jason for sending this to me on Twitter. Lab-made coronavirus triggers debate. This was from 2015 in The Scientist.
Oh, wow.
They say the creation of a chimeric SARS-like virus has scientists discussing the risks of gain-of-function research. They say Ralph Barrick, an infectious disease researcher at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, last week, November 9th, and again this article is from 2015, published a study on his team's efforts to engineer a virus with the surface protein of the SHC-014 coronavirus, found in horseshoe bats in China, and the backbone of one that causes human-like severe acute respiratory system, or SARS, in mice. The hybrid virus could infect human airway cells and cause disease in mice, according to the team's results, which were published in Nature Medicine. So the article goes on from there. Now, that's a
very inconvenient article for this whole coronavirus thing, isn't it?
Well, and it's funny, they published a little update at the top, in italics. Update, March 11, 2020, on social media news outlets. A theory has circulated. One of them theories, Vicky. Theory has circulated that the coronavirus at the root of the COVID-19 outbreak originated in research labs. Scientists say there's no evidence that the SARS-CoV-2 virus escaped from a lab. So, make sure that...
And if you say it, you're a conspiracy.
That's right. You're one of them whack job nutcases. So we got a lot of conspiracy theorists. We got Chinese people conspiring or theorizing. So anyway... Hey, get out and do some panic buying today. It's the end thing to do. You know, all the kids are doing it.
Sure.
So, all right, folks, got to keep your sense of humor about you. Pray for this republic. Do what you can to restore it. God bless each and every one of you. Thanks for all the calls today. Always enjoy hearing from people. And join us back here next week. Bring a friend. And we'll talk about all the fun stuff that's going on then. I'm sure there'll be more. Anyway, thank you, folks, for being with us. And we'll be back here next week, 11 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time. Thank you, Vicky. And thank you, everybody. And we'll talk to you then. God bless you, folks. Bye-bye.